everyone. Welcome. This is Chala, Dincoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert. Welcome to my podcast, Polish My Pitch, the Deep Dive section with my guest, David Russell. Welcome, David.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on, Chala. It's a honor to be here. Really enjoy your stuff. I've listened to several of your podcasts. You do great work.
Yeah, I know you were. I noticed you were there yesterday as well. We did a little training yesterday with a partner. So that was great. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Podcasts, aren't they the best way to meet people?
Yeah, they are. They're really good. It's great. I love in person, but in the meantime, during this crazy time, podcasts have been great to expand our reach and who we, nationally, even internationally.
I mean, we met because my podcast agents put me on your show. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did a great show. I recommended it to several of my clients.
Oh, so nice. So tell me what you do, and then we'll talk about the podcast and everything else.
Sure. So I have a company, Manage to Win. That's Manage the number 2 Win. And been doing this since 2006 of my, 47-year career. So I basically help bad bosses. One of my specialties is in hiring. So the cost of hiring mistakes is anywhere from $50,000 to 3 times someone's annual salary or compensation. So it's very costly as far as lost time, lost opportunity, stress on your existing staff, that type of thing. So I teach a system that if you're following the system, you could actually make a conditional offer at the end of the first interview. So I work a lot in the IT industry, helping to hire technical and non-technical people, but I also work in other industries too.
And what's the kind of hiring like in the IT industry?
It's very difficult, and it's very difficult even during COVID times. So every one of my current clients right now is hiring, and they are finding people, but they're also having to be careful because a lot of times when a company that offers IT services, they can't either meet demand or they can't bill for someone unless they have that seat filled. And so a lot of times they make an emotional decision. It's better to fill that seat than have it open. Better to keep that person who's not performing well than to get rid of them. Those are bad mantras. Those are bad messages. You need to create a new neural pathway where you could say, I can do better. And you really have to qualify them. Because if you think about it, you have the hiring process where you go through and you make a decision. That's certainly some time and some expense, particularly if you have a recruiter involved. But then you have your onboarding process. This person starts to interact with your clients, with your team. And if it's not the right fit, you can have a lot of damage, a lot of cost, far beyond what you're paying out of pocket for that person to be part of your team. So it's emotional, quick decisions, rather than going through a thorough process and trying to make certain you don't waste time with the wrong person.
So talk to us about that process if you're allowed to. I mean, don't give away anything proprietary, but
no, it's fine.
How does it work? I know you said there's a time pressure and that you're able to do this quickly. So talk about that process.
Well, actually, before I do that, if it's okay with you, let me share just a couple stories
that
talk about the pain.
Sure.
So one of the worst stories is I know someone very well who was in a .com and they lost their funding, and he didn't want to give up, which he should have, and had somebody walk through the door and just did one interview and thought, hey, this person could help me out. The person was saying what the guy wanted to hear, hired him. And a year and a half later, and he had gone from no debt in the company to $1.5 million in debt. That company crashed and burned. And if he had just followed the hiring process, he would have identified that this person was not a match and actually had done a background check. He would have found out there were 3 or 4 civil lawsuits against the person. And I'm not saying those lawsuits were right or wrong, but it would have alerted him, oh, there's a problem here.
Big red flag.
So yeah, you talk about an emotional decision, right?
Yeah.
Another one I'd say that's more common is when you interview someone and you're trying to fill that seat. And there was a statistic like 15 years ago that 67% of hiring decisions are made in the first 3 to 4 minutes of the first interview.
Ooh.
I kind of like this person. I could work with this person. Then I get back to my regular job. So you think about these people, they're trying to hire a tech person or they're trying to hire a person in an operation role, maybe overseeing techs or in sales. And, there's some things about the person they like, so they think it'll work, and they overlook things that are not a match. And whether it is behaviors, physical attributes, skill set, they haven't structured the hiring process to really catch these things. Whoops. And so what happens is, whether it's a week down the road or it's a year down the road, because they've waited too long, they keep hoping the person will work out.
Right.
They've wasted $50,000 to $100,000 or more.
Wow.
And it's because they didn't make the tough decision early on to say, no, this person's not a fit. And then they keep hoping to validate the decision by keeping the person on. And I mean, I could go through specific stories. I got tons of stories. They're all painful. I would say that if you kind of walk through some highlights of my system, the objective is what?
Let's hear about this mysterious system.
Well, the objective is to do your homework. So the first thing is that when you put an ad out, you're going to sell your culture more than put a laundry list of the needs of the position.
Okay.
This is what the person will do. This is the qualifications we need. Please apply. You want to sell the sizzle more than the steak. So sell what the company's about. Sell why it's going to be meaningful work. And then when you ask for the resume to be submitted, ask them to do 1, 2, or 3 things. Whether you say, put this in the subject line, whether you say, answer this question, and don't have some silly question, please, but see if they will do those things. And right there, that's a qualifier. You're going to have some people that are just resume dumping. And when they don't do it, it's like, boom, save my time.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when you get the resume, you really need to have some things you're looking for in the resume. And that's what we teach. What do you look for in a resume? And when it's not there, it's a yellow flag, it's a red flag, or at least it's a question. Then you have to do a phone screen because you want to save time. Because a phone screen, if you invite someone into your office and you really, like I had a client on the East Coast, and I was visiting their office and said, hey, we want you to interview this person. They're going to work on our admin staff. And I said, no, that's fine. Person came in, immediately insulted part of our hiring process. And I knew within 2 minutes, this person is not a fit. And I've got an hour scheduled for that in-person interview.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, what do I do? I'm not going to waste an hour of my client's time when they're paying me. So I took about 5 minutes and then I said, okay, well, thanks for coming in. I really just I want to get to know the candidates a little bit. And then, they'll be in touch, let you know how you're doing. Now, here's the problem. Guess what question she asked me?
What are the next steps?
Pretty good. She asked, oh, well, how did I do?
Oh, wow.
I was like, and fortunately I said, oh, you did about the same as everybody else. Thank you very much. I kind of ushered her out the door.
Very political.
I mean, it was absolute disaster. But on a phone screen, you can do that easier.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you should have specific questions you're going to ask on the phone screen. Now, I like to ask some uncomfortable questions.
Yeah.
You cannot legally ask, what are you getting paid?
No.
But I can say, what are your compensation objectives? That's legal.
You're allowed to ask that. Okay.
Okay.
So they can tell you like how much.
Yeah, because if their compensation objective is 120,000 and your budget is 60,000 for the position, you're wasting your time. Don't go there. Just and then you can close and just say, oh, well, I'm sorry, but that's not a match with what we've got. But I'll be happy to keep an eye out for you. Our budget's more in the 60,000 range. And if you come across somebody that's more in our range, please let me know. I'll be happy to look for you. You can look for me, and hasta la vista. And there's a couple other questions I like to ask that some people don't like to ask because they're uncomfortable.
Okay.
But I'd rather know in a phone screen before I've invested a ton of time.
Absolutely.
Or of my people's time. So then they come in and we have a process that we go through in that first in-person interview where I will end the process short anytime it's not a fit.
Good.
Okay.
Anybody's time.
But when it's going well, we've already written the offer letter. Okay. And so we'll have multiple people involved in the interview. We may interview for an hour or up to 2 hours. And then if it's going well, we make a decision. Do we want to come back for a second interview, which is fine? Or do we need to make an offer because this person is such a superstar and they've already told us they're interviewing with 2 other companies? Let's try to nail it down, give them an offer subject to background check, subject to reference check, subject to taking one of our talent assessments, and maybe subject to a little bit more of a test drive type of thing of their skills. But we get them committed, okay? And we're ready to go. Because we've got a process, we can do that because we're really confirming the details. So we go through the whole hour or 2 hours, then we say, will you just wait a moment, have a drink, whatever. And you go back to the other people interviewed and say, okay, who's in on this? Because we want a unanimous decision. If it's not unanimous, then the best you can do is bring them back for a second interview.
Wow.
Okay.
So it's like that fast. I'm so curious. What was your first job interview?
The one that I interviewed somebody or they interviewed me?
That you got interviewed. Were you like a kid?
When I first got interviewed, let's see, where I was actually interviewed for a job. I mean, I was kind of a kid because I quit college after a semester at UC Berkeley.
Perfect.
And I went to work on this floor of the stock exchange in San Francisco. So when I switched jobs,
Wow.
About a year later, I had a really brief interview by somebody. It was next to nothing. I was kind of a shoe-in.
What was the position?
It was as a clerk for a specialist on the floor of the exchange. So the specialist makes a market in certain stocks.
Oh my
And
God.
I was keeping track of what their positions were and, kind of managing stuff if they stepped away type of thing.
My God. And so how did you come to do this for a living?
Well, to be candid, I was the guy who made the $1.5 million mistake.
Hey, now it all now it's interesting.
Yeah. And it's like my epiphany, I mean, quite frankly, I got some people will call it a prompting from God type of thing was I had a .com that went .bomb, that one.
Wow.
And then to be candid, I was praying, crying, like, what do I do now?
Wow.
And the message I clearly heard was go help people avoid your mistakes, which is really funny if you think about it. It wasn't, Dave, you are so wise. You are so knowledgeable. Go teach people what you know. It was go help them avoid your mistakes. You've made some biggies.
I think it's perfect. Perfect. Like you made lemonade out of lemons.
Well, and that's just it. I think there's a saying, God never wastes a season. And, we're all going to have some failure. We're all going to have some mistakes. And the best thing we can do is learn from it. And what I've found in my 63 years is many times there will be other people that come into your path and they have gone through similar situations or are in similar situations and need to make difficult decisions. You don't make those decisions for them, but you can say, here's what I went through that was a similar situation. Here's the information I had to make decisions. And here were the decisions I made. Is there any way I can help you? And just as a friend. So
that's wonderful. So what's COVID been like for this industry for you?
Well, it's very interesting with the IT industry. The first 2 months were crazy because all these clients of theirs, of our company, so my clients primarily are IT managed service providers. So they provide outsourced help desk and then IT projects. And so the first 2 months were like crazy because their clients are calling, we got to move everybody remote. We need laptops. We need this. We need that. So they were all hands on deck going crazy. And then depending on the industries that they served, I mean, we have a wonderful client in New York and they had some big business with a theater company. Well, of course, the theater shut down. So that company just went away. But their other clients have done very well. They're actually going to have their best year ever. They grew this year. A lot of the IT companies are doing well because there's a real need for other companies to automate, to improve efficiencies, to improve communication with their people as they work remote to, help them be productive in this new environment. And a lot of that has to do with their computer equipment, their software, and not having downtime.
Wow. I mean, so things are great for some of the economy. Like this morning, I talked to a gentleman who had several schools of martial arts done, gone. Yeah, same as the theater. I mean, people are afraid to come back in. That is full contact sport, and so
Yeah.
everyone's on Zoom. So I'm so glad your business is not affected. Now, why do people hire you to interview job candidates instead of just you having them teach how to do it and then leave?
The biggest reason is I don't have the emotion.
Ah,
So I've got a group, C-level operations, and they are the number one consultant for operations for IT managed service providers. And they have 10 consultants across the country. They might even have one in Canada. They're just the best, and they're having their best year ever. They're doing great. They are excellent at teaching, how to be efficient and effective, providing these IT services. And they're super sharp guys. Okay. I'm trying to think. I think they might have one woman consultant. Okay. That teaches it, but they're super sharp, and there's 3 partners. They hire me. As a matter of fact, they just sent me another one yesterday. They want me to interview for them. And the reason they do it is I see things that they overlook. So recently, I've interviewed 3 or 4 people for them this year. And one of those this year, I came back and I said, don't hire him. Nice guy, and he'll be good in some position, but don't hire him. And when we went through my reasoning, one of the guys said, oh yeah. Like, I interviewed him and I saw a couple of yellow flags, but I thought it'd be okay. And then another guy in the company interviewed him. He saw a couple of yellow flags, but we thought it'd be okay. And I said, and then when I brought them up and I said, here's why they're not okay. Boom, boom, boom. Because with that type of company, we have a profile of what we know. It has a very, very high percentage of success as a consultant in their organization. Sometimes we vary from that. He's got 2 people on the team where we said, this would be a little bit different, but it can be a benefit to mix up the team a little bit.
yeah.
But like 80% of the team meets this one profile.
Right.
And if we're going to vary outside of it, we have to look for some other things to balance that.
Yeah. You can't just have a total.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so that's why I don't have the emotion. I'm not trying to fill a seat. I'm not desperate to fill a seat. One thing that's interesting this year, to be candid, I have a great client. They're not active right now, but I worked with them on their internal systems for how they hire, manage, develop, and retain people. And the original way he started working with me is because he was making everybody he hired quit. So it's like, I'm not doing something right. And so we had to do some revamping. But one interesting thing there, and I don't have the story on it yet, was that he made a hiring decision on his own about 2 months ago. And they still did our assessment because they wanted the feedback on what do you see in this guy. And when I looked at it, I said, this guy's not a match. You shouldn't hire him. He'd already made the hire. And, I'm not perfect. Maybe I'm wrong. But it'll be interesting to see how it works out, because he has made some changes. So he should be making better hiring decisions. But it clearly was a quick decision. And I don't know whether he knew this particular person earlier, type of thing. There's a lot of nuances that go into hiring.
But you know what? Now something's coming to mind that you actually improve the retention of the hire. So the likelihood of someone. So could you make a claim if you were to look back at your past hires and do the case study of all their previous hires versus all your hires? So yours stick around 4 times longer than their own hires. If you could make that claim, I mean, I just made that up, but if you could, metric, I think that could be your one-liner.
Well, it could be, or it could be just the fact that not only do I say this person will be a good hire, but sometimes we say this person looks like they'll be a superstar. And like one of my clients has one of their techs, and he's just like he's anywhere from 2 to 5 times better than any of their techs as far as churning through tickets. And he does them right. He doesn't take shortcuts.
So that could be another metric. I mean, depends on which is more painful for them. Is it productivity or turnover? And, find whichever the metric and then make that your one-liner. I love it.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this has been so amazing. Now, how do people reach you?
I just go to manage2win.com. It's manage the number 2win.com, shows our services. You can send in an email. The email on the website is info@manage2win.com. You are welcome to email me directly at david@manage2win.com if you like. Happy to help. Happy to just have a conversation if you want to. No obligation. If you got an employee that's an issue. That's one of the things that's interesting about the hiring piece is I have had a number of people in the space come to me and say, I need to hire a general manager or, a service manager or whatever. And I'll say, well, let's look at your existing people first. And in at least 2 situations, if not more in the last year, I've said, last year and a half, I said, you need to move this person up.
Wow.
I moved a receptionist into a GM position. Now, it's a process. Okay. Excuse me, that was wrong. An executive assistant into a GM position. So the executive assistant, I'm talking to them and they're like, yeah, we got to hire somebody for 100 or 200 grand. I say, well, wait a minute. Everything you say about this woman is she blows you away. She delivers on time or early, and it's always better than what you expect. And as we talked, and I said, she's your GM. Now, you're going to have to mentor her for about 2 years, but she's your GM and she's knocking it out of the park. And the company's doubling in size.
That's an amazing story. Well, I bet she really likes you. I hope she sends you some flowers.
Yeah, well, she did it. It wasn't me. She did it. And
Wow.
she's great. We love working with people like that, right?
Sure. Thank you so much, David. It's such a pleasure as always. Come back again.